Have you ever wondered why some people achieve financial freedom while you feel like you're constantly stuck in the grind of work? What is it that they know that you don't? The truth is, they don't work harder, they work smarter. They understand that wealth doesn't come from the effort you put in, but from the assets you own, assets that allow you to generate income without having to work for the rest of your life. In this video, I will share with you the 8 types of assets that successful people always have in their possession. And you'll realize that just one small shift in mindset can make a huge difference in your life. Don't miss this opportunity. Join me now as we uncover these secrets. 1. Business. There was a time when I was just like everyone else, looking at successful entrepreneurs with admiration mixed with doubt. I used to think they were lucky, maybe born into rich families, or had some secret that regular people like me couldn't access. But then, when I stepped into the world of business, I realized something. Behind the fame and success are years of struggle, failure, and moments when it felt like I couldn't go on. That's the problem. Society often only sees the success of entrepreneurs, but overlooks the tough journey they endured to build their assets. We celebrate names like Elon Musk and Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx and the first woman to become a billionaire on her own. But how many people know that Sarah once went door to door selling her product before she had any advertising budget? Business is not glamorous. It's a path filled with challenges, relentless creativity, and the courage to keep going. The feelings of uncertainty, self-doubt, and financial pressure are things almost everyone faces. I face them too. In the early days of my business, everything was new. No revenue, no brand, no one trusted me. At times, I had to work from dawn to dusk, juggling roles as CEO, accountant, and delivery person. Many asked me, why not just get a stable job? But what they didn't understand was that I didn't choose this path for ease. I chose it because I wanted freedom. This is the core difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. An employee sells their time for money, while an entrepreneur uses their time to build a system, an asset that works and generates income even when they're no longer working. A clear example is Jeff Bezos, who once had to pack Amazon's first orders by hand in a garage. But through perseverance and a long-term vision, he built Amazon into a giant, creating a steady cash flow even after stepping away from the role of CEO. Business is a tough road, but it's a road worth traveling. When you own a business, even a small one, you hold an asset that can create passive income, not only sustaining you, but potentially protecting your family's future. For me, that's the greatest gift. Not money, but the freedom to choose, to live according to the purpose I've set for myself. And if you're standing at a crossroads, don't let fear stop you. Because who knows, what awaits you ahead might not just be success, but the strongest version of yourself. 2. Real estate. After spending long, exhausting hours building a small business, I began to look further. I asked myself, how can I avoid working forever? Is there a way to both protect my achievements and generate steady passive income? And then I stumbled upon a new door: real estate. It sounds simple. Buy a house and rent it out. But when you're working full-time and even trying to keep a fledgling business afloat, investing a large sum into property is a decision that makes your heart race. I didn't have extra money lying around, and no one taught me how to buy property on a tight budget. My biggest fear wasn't just the money. It was the fear of failure, the fear of making a huge mistake with my first investment. Then I learned a concept that completely changed my way of thinking. OPM, other people's money. This means using borrowed money from banks or other investors to buy real estate, which you then rent out, using the rental income to pay off the loan. The key is choosing properties with the potential for profit, where the rental income covers the expenses and still generates a profit. I'll never forget the story of Brandon Turner, a well-known author and co-founder of BiggerPockets. Someone who started with small houses, fully leveraging OPM, and turned them into a real estate empire with hundreds of rental properties. He didn't start with millions of dollars. He started with knowledge and a smart strategy. When I owned my first rental property, I began to see the difference. Every month after subtracting expenses, I still had money flowing into my account without having to trade my time for it. And even more importantly, real estate offered a massive benefit: tax deductions. The U.S. government offers strong incentives for real estate investors through depreciation, repair costs, interest on loans, and so on, helping me keep more of the profits I earned. Step by step, I continue to expand my portfolio. Not at a breakneck pace, but with patience and calculation. And then, one day, I realized I had broken free from the cycle of earn as much as you work. Like Robert Kiyosaki once said, real estate is a path to financial freedom if you know how to use it. Today, I no longer work because I have to. I work because I want to. And each rental property, each stream of passive income that flows in is a gentle reminder that I'm on the right track. If you're still wondering where to start, begin somewhere you can understand, learn, and take small actions. Because sometimes just one decision at the right moment can change the rest of your life. 3. Paper assets. Once I had a few rental properties under my belt and a stable monthly cash flow, I started thinking about something bigger. How could I expand my income stream without putting in much more effort? I knew I couldn't rely on each property forever. Real estate, no matter how valuable, requires management, maintenance, and sometimes late-night phone calls about broken pipes. I needed an asset that could work for me without needing me to show up every day. And I found the answer through a seemingly simple concept: paper assets, stocks, bonds, and investment funds. But I won't lie, starting to invest in the stock market left me feeling overwhelmed. The news was flooded with red charts and terms like recession, crisis, and interest rate hikes. I used to think stock market investing was just for the rich or Wall Street experts with 3 MBAs in hand. Then I read about Peter Lynch, the legendary investor of the Fidelity Magellan Fund. He once said, "Investing doesn't have to be complicated. Every consumer has an edge. You spot market trends before the experts do." It was his observations of everyday products, from Nike shoes to Colgate toothpaste, that helped him generate an annual return of over 29% for 13 years straight. That quote woke me up. I started with what I understood: the tech companies whose products I used every day, the supermarket chains where I regularly shopped, and simple index funds like the S&P 500 ETF, where I could own a small part of hundreds of major companies without having to manage them. And then, month after month, quarter after quarter, I saw my money begin to work. Profits were reinvested, dividends flowed into my account without me needing to pick up the phone or respond to any emails. That's the power of paper assets, silent but effective. Just like Warren Buffett, a legendary investor who became one of the richest people in the world, not by working tirelessly day and night, but by having the patience to let his assets grow over time. I learned a valuable lesson. If you don't have time to run a business or enough capital to invest in real estate, the financial markets are the ideal place to start. You don't need to be rich to invest. You invest so that one day you no longer have to work for money. Looking back, I see clearly that the path to financial freedom isn't a giant leap. It's about making small but right decisions repeated over time. And paper assets are a strategic step on that journey. 4. Commodities. After tasting the sweetness of income from paper assets, I began to understand something more important than just profit: safety during times of crisis. Because when the stock market fluctuates, when indexes rise and fall with each tweet or piece of global news, I realized I still lacked a layer of protection. Something more solid, something that time, inflation, or political instability couldn't easily shake. That's when I turned my attention to commodities: gold, silver, oil, timber, agricultural products. At first, I thought commodities were for the elite or central banks, the ones who control the economy. But then I remembered a lesson Robert Kiyosaki shared. Commodities are real money. Gold is God's money, while paper money is just the government's promise. When inflation surges and the dollar loses value, gold has always been there, shining brightly, a timeless symbol of trust. Look back at history. During the 2008 financial crisis, when the stock market plummeted, the price of gold surged, becoming a safe haven for global investors. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything seemed to collapse, gold and silver remained the best-performing assets. It wasn't luck, it was their nature. I started investing bit by bit. Some physical gold to store, a few commodity ETFs like GLD, gold, SLV, silver, or DBC, a fund that invests in various commodities. And not just gold, I also looked into energy like oil and natural gas, which are the backbone of every economy. The benefits were clear. Not only did it help diversify my portfolio, but commodities also served as a shield against inflation, which silently eats away at the value of every dollar we earn. I used to think wealth only came from profits and growth, but now I understand that sustainability and resilience during times of crisis are what truly create lasting wealth. Investing in commodities isn't about getting rich quickly. It's about protecting what you've worked so hard to build. And if you're looking for a solid foundation in your financial journey, especially in an age when everything can change with just one news report, remember this: gold doesn't promise anything, but it's never betrayed anyone. I don't just invest in gold and silver. I invest in peace of mind.
5. Time. I used to believe that the smartest investment was finding the highest yielding opportunities. But the deeper I went, the more I realized that the most valuable asset isn't locked in a safe or a savings account. It's right in my hands, silently slipping away each day. The one thing that can't be bought, borrowed, or stored: time. We often hear the phrase, "time is money," but in reality, time is even more precious than money. Money can be lost and earned back, but time, once it's gone, is gone forever. I once squandered my youth working for others, sacrificing time for what I thought was security. But one day, as I looked back, I realized I had given up far too much. Those late afternoons spent with family, those quiet mornings sipping coffee and savoring life, all stolen by a packed schedule and endless meetings. Then I read a quote from Warren Buffett, the third richest person in the world and a brilliant investor. "The best investment you can make is in yourself." That quote changed me. I began to reevaluate every hour of my day, not to push myself to work more, but to live more meaningfully. I spent my mornings learning, just 30 minutes a day, but the cumulative effect was astonishing. I read books, listened to podcasts, and enrolled in online courses, from soft skills to financial technology. This habit of investing in myself with time each day opened new opportunities: a better job, a side project that could evolve into a business, a life less controlled by others. As Michelle Obama once said, "Success isn't about how much money you make. It's about the difference you make in people's lives." And to make that difference, you need time. Time to learn, to love, to give. I also learned to say no. Not every invitation is an opportunity. Not everyone who wants to meet me deserves my time. Knowing how to prioritize time for what truly matters made me feel richer every day, even when my bank balance didn't change. I used to race against the clock. Now I run alongside it, not to be swept away, but to actively guide my life in my own way. Because you can't buy back yesterday, but you can start today, with an hour of learning, a minute of quiet, or a small action for a great future. Time doesn't speak, but if you listen carefully, it will show you the way to freedom.
6. Health. I once thought that as long as I had time and money, I could do anything. But one morning, I woke up feeling drained after just a few steps.
My body, the one I had neglected for so many years, began sending alarming signals. I realized the painful truth. Many people sacrifice their health to earn money, only to find themselves spending their wealth to regain their health, something that sometimes money can't buy back. None of us are taught how to invest in health like we are taught to invest in stocks. But if there is one investment that pays dividends every day, it's health. You can't manage your work, enjoy time with family, travel, or even read a book if your body isn't strong enough to keep up. I remember the story of Steve Jobs, a tech genius who changed the world. At the height of his career, with a fortune exceeding $10 billion, he was also confronted with a deadly cancer. Lying in a hospital bed, he once said, "Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night saying we've done something wonderful, that's what matters to me." No matter how wealthy he was, he could not buy back time, and certainly couldn't exchange it for a healthy body. I began my journey of change not with grand gestures. It was as simple as walking 15 minutes each morning, cutting back on fast food, and getting enough sleep. Then I gradually upgraded, joining a gym, learning to cook healthy meals, and dedicating time to meditation to reduce stress. The results didn't come immediately, but after a few weeks, I found my mind clearer, my body lighter, and most importantly, I felt I was working more effectively, more creatively. When you're healthy, you have the energy to pursue your goals, the patience to solve problems, and the inspiration to live each moment fully. I no longer take health for granted. I treat my body like a companion, imperfect, but the truest friend I have. And I've learned to listen to it. Because in the end, all the assets you have, time, money, dreams, depend on one thing, whether your body is strong enough to live fully alongside them. If you're focused on chasing success, remember, true success begins with a healthy body. There's no better foundation than enduring health, and it's never too late to begin. 7. Online assets. After stabilizing my health and learning how to manage my time better, I began to ask myself, how can I create additional income without sacrificing too much effort every day? I no longer wanted to work relentlessly for 12 hours only to crash into bed at midnight while money slipped through my fingers like sand. I knew I needed something that could work even when I was sleeping, walking, or spending time with my family. And then I discovered a concept I had never taken seriously before: online assets. But let me clarify, I'm not a tech expert nor a famous influencer. I'm just someone with a bit of experience, a little passion, and a laptop. At first, I created a small blog to share my health transformation journey. I wrote from real experience, straight from the heart. No one read it in the first month, but I persisted. I learned how to optimize content, how to add ads, and how to create a small course to help others begin a similar journey. Step by step, income started to come in. It wasn't large, but it was consistent. I thought of Pat Flynn, an American who had been laid off from his engineering job. He started sharing knowledge on his blog, Smart Passive Income, and built his own online empire from there. No office, no boss, just value, consistency, and trust from his audience. I realized that in this day and age, anyone can become a small business online. Are you good at cooking? Teach recipes on YouTube. Do you enjoy carpentry? Share techniques through short videos. Are you skilled at writing or speaking? Start a podcast, write an ebook, or launch an online course. It all starts with the courage to share. The greatest benefit? You build an asset with no boundaries. People can read your articles in Europe while you're sleeping in the US. A video you post today can generate income for years to come. This is no longer a distant dream, it's the reality of many people living among us. And when I look back, I know what made me start wasn't the money. It was freedom. Freedom from traditional limitations. Freedom to create. Freedom to choose. And I believe if I can do it, you can too. So don't wait until you have all the answers. Just start with what you have from where you are.
Online assets aren't just tools to make money. They are the key that unlocks the door to real freedom in the digital age. 8. Networking. When I first began building my online assets, I thought as long as I have good content, that's enough. But after a few months, I realized a harsh truth. If no one knows who you are, no matter how skilled you are, you remain invisible. I used to think success was just about personal talent. But the truth is, the world doesn't operate solely on talent, but on connection. I remember the first time an old friend shared one of my articles on social media. Immediately, my traffic spiked. And from that, I realized the irreplaceable value of one thing: networking. You might be smart, passionate, and talented, but if you don't know how to build quality relationships, you're setting a limit for yourself. Like Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, once said, "Success isn't about what you know, it's about who you know and who knows you." I began learning how to build connections, not awkwardly, but sincerely. I thanked people who shared my content. I introduced myself to people in my field. I attended webinars not just to learn, but to meet others. One day, I received an invitation to collaborate from someone who had quietly followed my posts for 6 months. We created a new course together, and as a result, that month's revenue tripled. It all started with a seemingly small connection. And I also realized every satisfied customer is a potential ambassador for your personal brand. A single recommendation has the power of dozens of ad campaigns. Look at Oprah Winfrey's journey. She didn't just succeed because of her leadership talent, but because she built a community of people who loved, trusted, and were willing to introduce her to millions of new viewers. That's the power of networking. I used to think success meant just doing my part well, but I was wrong. True success comes from building a community where everyone is a bridge leading you to new opportunities. So, if you're starting a new journey, whether it's business, creativity, or personal growth, don't go it alone. Build, nurture, and cherish every relationship. Because sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change the entire game. I once thought that simply working hard and saving steadily would lead to financial freedom. But after many years of spending, debt, worry, I realized a bitter truth. Hard work is no longer the path to wealth in today's world. We live in an era where if you don't change your mindset, you'll remain stuck in a never-ending race. Because money doesn't come from the hours you put in, but from the assets you build over time. So, those are the 8 wealth-building assets designed to create financial freedom and passive income for life. Remember, every decision you make today is a brick in your prosperous future. Don't just work for money, make your money work for you. If you found this video helpful, share it to help others build a life of financial freedom.